1 2. Testing 1 2. Sio doichu. Dodo pakale danada konagis kitchalagi ani anwea. My name is Chief Eagle Spirit Dancing of the Cherokee and Congaree peoples of South and North Carolina. I wanted to play a little flute in the background. I hope you guys can hear it. Kind of reflecting the atmosphere up here in Connecticut right now. We've been having thunderstorms on and off for the past 48 hours, and I mean something terrible. Nothing I've seen in all my 53 years. You know how when it's really hot, and then you look up and you see the clouds coming in on the horizon, and suddenly it's a thunderstorm, violent thunderstorm, and then it stops. Well, we've had several of those within the past 2 days. CO sister, how you doing? Several within 48 hours. And again, in all my 53 years, I've never seen thunderstorms like that back to back. I mean, even now, from early afternoon when it started till about 40 minutes ago, the thunder and you know lightning and the rain came down for the third time today. Never seen such activity on that scale. So we definitely know that there is a God, if you will, that is working to let us know, to humble us. Hopefully, I'm glad. I'm glad you're doing well, sister. I'm glad you're doing well, and letting us know that He will take us out. I've said this so many times in my other videos that when we think we're in control, you know, um, and we have not conformed. Pardon me. Hello? Yeah, I'm on live right now. What's up? Hello? I'm on live on YouTube. Okay. I'll call you back. Okay. Bye. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, as I was saying that when we think that we have everything under control and that the we are the controllers of this world, we will be rudely reminded that we are not. But given a time to make the choices between good and evil, and given a time to either correct ourselves or be corrected. So I say that the weather phenomena, as some people would call it, you know, I don't know, sister, what you're experiencing where you are, but where I am, we went through a drought for almost 2 weeks, pure sunshine, 80 plus degree weather, damn near 95 degrees on some days. Um, and almost for 2 weeks, no rain. And prior to those 2 weeks, we had nothing but flooding rains. Every other day, it was raining constantly, constantly, constantly. And then the drought. And now we're getting flash thunderstorms in perpetuity. Never seen nothing like that in all my 50 some years. So I wanted to bring that to you know, people's attention, to please pay attention to the weather, because these are the signs of things to come. And make sure that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, please to take care and to prepare. You never know. You never know what might befall you: tornado, hurricane, floods. I have my boat just in case. Like I said, we're getting a lot of rain. You know, just in case I have to jump in the canoe, you know, and haul butt, you know. So that is something that I wanted to, speak on briefly. But overall, today's topic, I wanted to reflect on indigenous peoples and their stories. Who's telling our stories, um, and are they accurate uh, in its telling that? So with so many different nations of indigenous peoples here, you know, it baffles the mind when you think about so many people who have been destroyed by colonial, um, wars, um, and our people who have been destroyed through indoctrination and reprogramming, and then, when you go as far as looking to those who immediately thereafter, they took they not only put our perspectives on hold for a while in terms of our cultural past or history. When they decided, they took up the mantle and said, well, we're going to tell your stories for you. When I go on YouTube and I see the um, myriad of different peoples telling indigenous people stories, for the most part, white people, for the most part. There now are indigenous peoples today, and thank God, to YouTube, who are telling our stories. And what a wonderful story, or should I say, stories that there are to tell. Those that know, those that are learning, and that which that has not been told as of yet. But I wanted to key in on the particular one, and that particular one is the European. I think that it is a travesty today that most people in the indigenous peoples community, and when I say travesty, I don't mean to the degree that it's not productive, but it doesn't serve a major purpose or a major goal. And what I'm getting at is the tearing down of the Christopher Columbus statues. I'm noticing that they're tearing them down, and I said, "Wow, great, whoopee doo." They're acknowledging that, having these iconic statues that they refer to as something to relish, um, to savor, if you will. That's for them. Of course, our people, when we look at these so-called iconic figures, it's a memory of one of death, slavery, rape, injustice. So many different uh, destructive adjectives I can use when I think about what Christopher Columbus accomplished, in his time. And I think about the Spaniards, and incidentally enough, Christopher Columbus was of mixed heritage. He was Spanish and Italian, and you know, or what has been the prevailing mindset was that he did a great thing in the world in terms of his conquests and his this so-called quote unquote discoveries. When we as indigenous peoples know that he couldn't discover, his behind if he looked for it, um, with a map and a compass or whatever. So, uh, of course, seeing that people are rising up in light of the George Floyd murder, and that now people are saying because the conscious community is awake and active, and I think that is a great thing. However, we must recognize that the the iconic uh, mentalities or the thinking that designed those structures, those monuments, are still around. How do you tear those down? So as the statues are being removed, the anger is being kindled. I see people cheering as they're pulling down the monuments, and I say to myself, the people who admired or revered Christopher Columbus and many others are growing increasingly upset. And you would think, you gotta understand, look at the dynamics in this thinking here. Because when we go back 2, 3, 400 years ago, when our fathers were being slaughtered, were being indoctrinated, were being deceived, were being displaced, the women being raped and slaughtered, children, we thought to ourselves then, what manner of man would do something like this? So let's speed up a bit. 300 to 400 years later, and I'm not taking away from those who are in the streets protesting and are against the figures that stand for those principles, if you will, and they are all for the tearing down of these monuments. I'm not taking away from them. All I'm saying is that at the end of the day, those whose anger has been kindled. I'll give you an example. There were 3 Wilmington, North Carolina police officers who were caught um, accidentally, as it were, saying that they were waiting for a race war, a civil war to occur, and that they could not wait to go out to slaughter the darker peoples wholesale, and that would send us back 3 to 5 generations. Now, going back um, 3 to 500 years now, when our people saw what the Europeans were doing, and we asked the question, what manner or what kind of man thinks or acts this way? Um, the hard part is that we know that there are good thinking white people, and there are those who do not cater to that mentality. It's almost like saying that many of them have grown up, if you will. Uh, But it's almost like, you're being lowered into a pit with snakes. All of the snakes look the same, but there are those who have poison and there are those who do not. Begs the question, how do you filter through that which is harmful, potentially fatal to those who aren't? These are very serious issues or questions that are almost impossible to get an answer when you're dealing with so many people. Um, so we ask ourselves the question anyway. We say, well, then what can we do? What should we do? Um, we are, and again, my applause to those who are out there, protesting, fighting the good fight. It's just at the end of the day, when we achieve the goals of destroying these monuments and even adding, because this is one of the points of interest that many are talking about now in many different circles, the curriculum of inclusion within the school system, which I think is a serious issue because we know that the darker peoples have been um, left out. And it hurts the soul because you want to reflect any people who would have a sense of pride about themselves, where they come from. If you're being served by a people who have conquered you. Now listen, when I say conquered, we have been a conquered people for the past few centuries. But those that have conquered us, they have not served us right. So we have to demand, not even ask anymore, because we're beyond asking now. It's the point where we're demanding, or, well, history tells us whenever people who have a knee on their neck and say, I can't breathe, it comes to a point where either I'm going to die or I'm going to get you off my neck so I can breathe. All right. So in the school systems, we're asking that our people be recognized with historical accuracy, not this recent mumbo jumbo 1950s history, that they have been putting in our faces in terms of our meager accomplishments. And in some cases, some of us have made major accomplishments. But look, look, our people in that respect are different from white people. We've never dealt with the I. This is where their constitution is hypocritical. In the Constitution, it says, we the people. It's the first sentence, we the people. Who and what people were they referring to? They wasn't talking about us. Black, brown, red. They were not talking about us. And that cannot be argued. And if they were to bring that to the table to argue, of course, our people in their right minds and with enough investigative research can look and say, well, look, where have you been all inclusive in your education, in your economics? I'm not too much for European culture. I'm sorry. They can leave that. We have our own cultures for those of us who have managed to retain indigenous peoples. Some of us have managed to retain our history and our culture and keep that intact. But many of us have lost a lot of our cultural history and past. So for those today who are arguing the case that we have to have a path to inclusion, what are we asking for? We're not asking for handouts. We're saying, damn it, we want to know about our past. Now, the recent past, we know already within the past 2 to 300 years what has been done, how our people were destroyed. But where do we go from there? Do we keep begging this man, or we demand that, okay, now guess what? We have scholars in our communities. We have professors in our communities. We have material, literature. Uh, however controversial it may be, it's something that needs to be entertained or explored or included, that we may, hey, Sister April, how you doing? That it may be instituted into the curriculum, that we may have healthy debates and dialogues in the classrooms, and that this might further the self esteem and the intellect of our people individually and collectively. This is something that must be done if we are to move forward. And then, of course, in the last part would be economics, reparations. Black and brown people and red people deserve restitution. Yes. But I'm not all for just financial, parceling out, of greenbacks. I want land. Shoot. Indigenous peoples, black people were promised 40 acres and a mule. They didn't get one mule nor the tail of a donkey. So what are we asking for? Excuse me, or what are we demanding? We must demand that they repay us for what they have done. And not to the point where we say, well, this was 2 to 300 years ago. No, no, because our people are on Indian reservations. Our people are in the cities suffering. We are suffering discrimination, racism. We're suffering murder at the hands of the police. All of these things. So when you want to talk about Bill, he doesn't have enough money. Even though he prints money all day, every day, probably would take all of the trees in the forests of North America and South America to pay us what they owe. So they would bankrupt this system. So what is the next best thing? And this is where things get a little sticky, if you will. Because our people, and I'm talking to my native people now, some of us don't get along today. We still got 100-year-old beefs, 200-year-old conflicts. Some of us have sold out. Then people talk about what's wrong with the black people in Africa, why they can't come together, because the white man has been there. Whether he came from France, England, America, he's been there, or China. They've been there undermining the people's politics, the governments, through what? A White House, a picket fence to those who are in charge, sometimes a white woman. Come on, talk to me. To undermine those people's efforts to satisfactorily build infrastructure or a system that would be in the best interest of the country and its peoples. So they have done this all across the board. This is old news. Some of our people should be aware and alert to this. So here in North America, if we were, as indigenous peoples, now the Indian movements and the protests fighting for the removal of Christopher Columbus statues, but the attitudes and the mentality of white people, many of them, I'm not going to absolve them of that, are still there. Many of them are in a position of power, and they are racist as hell. They have been that way since they've been here. They are worse than their forefathers, as it says in the scriptures, that the sins of their fathers shall be revisited on their sons and daughters in the third and fourth generation. Look at what we're looking at today with the police, the GOP, the Republicans, the Democrats, They can't seem to get along in terms of signing a simple bill for police reform and instituting laws that would keep police officers from committing these violent and illegal acts, such as chokehold and putting a knee in someone's neck. They can't even agree on that. So, what the hell is that telling you? They really don't give a damn. There was a sister that was on right after I don't know if a lot of the rioting taking place around the country. Her name was Kimberly Jones. I don't know if you guys have heard of her and what she said about black people, you know, wanting equality. She said you guys should be lucky. All we want is equality and not revenge. Let me give you a let me give you a quote from an Indian chief who was a chief in a movie called Dances with Wolves. His name was Floyd Crow Westerman. And he said in I think it was a 2 hour video that he did, and he was talking about a revolution in this country that would be bloody. Ironically enough, that same revolution is really spoken about in the scriptures in the Bible. It's spoken about as Armageddon, but it would be the sons of light against the sons of darkness. That's really not a color issue, but it is against a people that are wicked as hell. You met him in person? You, you know what? I love the brother. When because he married a white woman, so I was I was a little taken aback. He was talking about the revolution and the bloody revolution that he said blacks, Hispanics, Native American Indians would be against white people, and that there would be a slaughter. This was his words, and I I said to myself, I'm like, did was his wife sitting behind him when he made this video? Was he anywhere around? Excuse me, was she anywhere around when he did this? So it begs the question, when people are commenting on these things, what really is your position? Who are you, and what are you really all about? And that's why when he said those things, I said to myself, and this is a problem that we have in the indigenous communities. Many of us are divided amongst ourselves in our communities on the reservations. We're divided through some minor cultural differences, attitudes, racism that many of us were taught by white people. The sickness of racism has been taught to a lot of the indigenous on the reservations throughout the country. Not all of them, but many. And and then we ask the question, and so many people who are waking up to their connection to being indigenous here, the darker indigenous, especially the woolly haired indigenous peoples. You understand what I'm saying? So, and with that, so many people are in a mode of rejection and resistance. So, how are we supposed to rectify or deal with these issues when there's so much divisiveness and should I say division overall and conflict? Again, there are some Indians who, because of centuries old beefs, are still arguing today, or they won't connect, they won't talk to each other. And I was of the mindset of Tecumseh, when he was traveling around the country teaching and telling our people that we better put our petty differences aside, or we're going to lose the whole country. And it proved that his prophetic words held truth, because we are living that today. So what have we learned? We have not moved forward. We have not put our petty differences aside. Many of us have not learned to look past color. Um, However, I will say that regardless when it comes to white people, you know, the last Indian wars were fought in the when, the 1890s, and many Indians started marrying white women like like the indigenous women were going out of style or something, and it wasn't something that sat well with a lot of our people, many communities, many circles, um, and it breaks your heart, you know. So these things are attributable to what is currently in the mentality, the psyche, the confusion that exists amongst indigenous populations. So where and how do we come out of this funk of divisiveness? You know, for a second now, with the pressure being put on the government, like I said, to take these monuments down. But our people are not asking which one of you has a monument of racism in your head? Which one of you are planning and plotting our destruction? See, those questions will never be asked, because even to imply to white people who are racist against any of the darker peoples, if they want to keep their things, you know, the way they feel hidden or a secret, they're going to say, what are you trying to say, that I'm racist? I'm not racist. And again, I'll make the example of those 3 Wilmington, North Carolina police officers who were caught talking about a civil/race war just the other day. How do you reform that? You know, reform a racist? It has happened. So they say, you know, the couple of white people here and there who were racist have converted. They have withdrawn their racist ideology and have, you know, turned themselves around. But look, we're not dealing with the few here. We're dealing with an entity that has been around for over 150 years. And they have been, look, since I remember back in the 70s when I was a little boy, watching this show that used to be called A Current Affair. I forget the name of the guy who's a talk show. He's a talk show host that deals with all of the DNA checking of daddy, and I have all of these people, black, white, Hispanic, fighting on these shows. You know, find out this one's sleeping with that one. And Maury Povich, there you go, him. Back in the 70s, I remember when I was a little boy in my maybe about 10 years old, 11, and watching, they showing facilities down south of the Klan with their children training up in the mountains. This was back in the 70s. I never forgot it. Never forgot it. It's back in the 70s. So let's fast forward to 2020. All of these hate groups. And they keep downplaying it, saying, oh, it's not that many of them. You know, it's only a hand. Man, it takes a grain of sand. I'm quoting Huey Newton on this. All it takes is a grain of sand to change or move the world, excuse me. And meaning change things, not necessarily for the better. So the federal government have not labeled the KKK, the skinheads, Nazis, the freedom fighters, the militias, the patriots. They have not labeled these people as terrorists. But we know for a fact that the government systematically locked up, killed, destroyed the Black Panther Party and the American Indian movement. Did they not? Who? Wait a minute. Come on. Come on. They went after our people with a vengeance. And yet they leave the Klan in their facilities, their fortresses that they have around the country. They have been training their children and their people for the past 50 to 100 years, preparing for what? War. You know, and you have to ask yourself another question, that if the FBI is not labeling these people terrorists, why not? Is there some connection? Are there members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation involved with the Klan? These. So what are we protesting and fighting for? The white man is scared to death. I'm going to tell y'all something. Listen, they're terrified. You know why they're terrified? They're terrified of this. The darker people's coming together. They're scared that they're going to lose their hegemony through a democratic process, fair elections. They know that our people have been disenfranchised, left out, run out, laid bare, and that we're tired. And that now we want to see faces that are not just of a darker hue now, because we're tired of the same old foolishness with these white males who have been lying to us for the past 100+ years. They have been telling us. That's why people ask me, you vote? Hell no. For what? For who? A rotten system. Rotten to the core. That's why Martin Luther King didn't want to run for any office, because he knew that the roots on that tree was rotten, and he did not want to be a branch on that corrupt and rotten tree. So what do we have? A system and a process that has never worked for our people. So many of us, and don't get me wrong, listen, if you want to vote, God bless you. Go ahead. Because many of us are looking for um, progress. We're looking for peace. We're looking for justice. And we're looking for equality. I don't know how far that's going to go. People don't understand why white folks, for the most part, don't want to live in our communities. They don't want to be a part of um, the ground that we walk on daily. Why? Because they're scared of DNA. They don't want to be deleted. I still can't understand why so many of our people don't get this. Especially black people. They know that once the mixing starts, that's it for them. So understand where their fear and the resistance to integration is coming from. I actually believe in separation. I'm sorry. We were doing much better off before they got here. Were we not? Come on, people. Talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me. We were doing much better before they got here. So, these are some important issues that needs real discussion, because we're talking about life now and death. That's the reality behind all of this. So many people are pushing for an agenda again of curriculum inclusion. Um, removing monuments, iconic figures. They pulling down Jefferson and again kindling the anger of white people who are opposed to this. And listen, I want to look. I want to say something else, my sisters today. Be careful, and I mean this sincerely. Be careful wherever you are, especially at night. If you're in a mixed community, or and especially dealing with white male police officers, because the ones that got caught in Wilmington, I'm almost certain that they were linked with some type of group. And if they weren't, they probably linked up after they got fired and lost their jobs. But they definitely had the mindset that would attract those type of groups to them. But it changed in the 70s. Oh, well, it changed? Okay, well, sister, listen, listen. You heard about the hangings in California just recently, right? So my thing is, don't go to sleep, because I see up here in Connecticut, white men driving around in pickup trucks with Confederate flags on the back, and yeah, I don't play. I just got my carrier's permit up here. Shit, I don't play. They ain't catching this one, because they're kidding. Look, they're huh? It changed there. Uh, like I said, I'm the type of person where I always keep one eye open. I'm not that trusting. So I got 500 reasons why I don't trust a lot of white folks. I'm not saying all of them are bad, but I don't have time to be filtering through the snakes and which ones got the poison and which ones don't. All I know is the first one that lunges at me, I'm going to chop its head off. So that's what I'm saying, my sisters, please, when you're anywhere at night, make sure you have somebody with you, or if you can't, make sure you have something with you to protect yourself, because we are, look, these days that we're headed into, I already knew all of this was coming long time ago because I read the books. And if anyone who has a bit of sense to see that we are headed into very, very, very destructive territory, that's because this country was built on the backs, the bones, the blood, the sweat, and the tears of our people, and there has been no restitution. I keep hearing people saying uh, the, uh, the blood of our ancestors is crying out from the grave, but through us, yes, they're crying out through us, our people, and that now so many people who were in denial about white male police officers killing the darker peoples around the country have been dismissed. I say, wait a minute. Did you forget what happened with Rodney King? Have we forgotten what happened with Rodney King? I mean, they showed us to our faces what these white men did. And what did white folks do back in California in 1992? I remember working at Columbia University, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right before I think the verdict was to come in that day. They told all black people, this is in New York City, they told all of us to go home, 3 o'clock, because they were scared that there was going to be a rebellion in New York, because I guess they already knew that those white officers were going to get off. Oh boy. Here we are, 20 something years later. Now, another videotape. They kill this brother and so many others. It seems like it just goes on and on and on. But now people are frustrated. They're tired. People burning stuff down. That's nothing new. It's been going. That happened in the 60s too. But the difference today is There are more guns in America now than it was back then. And people are already getting shot. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where we are headed. Can it be avoided? Hope so. Because the scriptures have told us that that which is headed in our direction is going to be the worst war conflict the world has ever seen. It's the last one, if it should come to that, but it's going to be the great and last war of this world. But what would be the trigger to spark such an event? A repeat, officers in the courts of law being exonerated right in front of our faces again. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, because, things are looking like they're going to lead up to a conviction. And hopefully that's what happens. But be prepared, because again, what will be the spark that would set off a chain reaction that would bring about the ultimate demise of this country? And she is already unraveling, as the good minister has told us. She is already unraveling because of her dealings with us. And now with COVID-19, people losing businesses, jobs, people forced out. And look, there's nothing worse than a man who has nothing to lose. Imagine 10 million people with nothing to lose. So the reasons why we saw more people out in the streets, many people out of work. Now Trump is talking about bringing troops home from Germany. He didn't even tell his Joint Chiefs. Isn't that a little interesting? America has troops in 163 countries around the world. 163. So she has like a stranglehold around the world. And we wonder why, with our American dollar, we don't have no resources to back it up. What's holding the dollar up as she's tumbling down to the bottom? It's the gun that's holding up our currency. Now, what's going on with Trump and this alleged bounty with Afghanistan? Look, I don't know if you guys know, but America was behind the war between Russia and Afghanistan when Russia was over there trying to invade and take over the country. America was supplying weapons to the Taliban and Osama bin Laden. This was back in the 1980s. If any of you are aware of this history, I remember when I was in my teens, I used to watch the war on the news, and Osama bin Laden was there, and he was being funded by the United States against Russia. And Reagan and company also helped with the dismantling of, guess what? Come on. Of the Iron Curtain. If you're unaware, that's the communist state that they had an iron grip on its people. And Reagan, with his big mouth, goes and tells Gorbachev back in the 90s, before the revolution was sparked, to tear down that wall. and ultimately dismantling the communist regime. And guess who was a KGB agent at that time? Mr. Putin, President Putin. So, yeah, Mr. Putin's pissed off. With who? With this country. Why wouldn't he be? Why wouldn't he be? Is he responsible, or is he behind some of the shenanigans that's going on with Trump? It could be. Yeah. I mean, but that's between these white folks. The only problem is that what they're trying to do is what happened in their country. They're trying to undermine the social order. But look. America's social order was undermined when she came here and stole this country from our people, brought black people from Africa, brought them over here as slaves, put our people on plantations, made us slaves, indoctrinated us, reprogrammed us, destroyed our people. So the social order has been destroyed. This America was an experiment. So we're already destroyed from within. So Putin and company are trying to hurry it along. They're trying to hurry the process. We have to make sure that we are informed and prepared. Because no matter how you slice it, no matter how you cut it, this country's headed down the toilet. And the only thing that is always some type of recession or epidemic to shut things down, to affect people's businesses, to create poverty, chaos, so that folks want to move out of their community. Yeah, tell me something I don't know. This ain't nothing new. That's true. TPL, yeah, presidency, yeah, and Democrats who, have their foot on the gas leading up to, during their campaign and trying to get elected, and then as soon as they become president, they take their foot off the gas. When it comes to us, look at what Obama did. He did everything for the LGBTQ community. What did he do for indigenous peoples and black peoples? Yes, he made attempts. He made attempts to implement programs and economic stability within our communities, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. So the Democrats, I don't see a difference between the Republicans, except the Democrats are a little more devious in their dealings with us. They're all the smiles and the handshakes and the hugs. And get out of here with that. Come on, I'm 53 years old. So for the past 100 years, the Democrats have been just as bad, if not, at least the Republicans, we know where they're coming from. We know where they're coming from. That's like the difference between northern and southern racists. Down south, they call you nigga in your face. But up north, they smile in your face and shake your hand and wait till they get behind closed doors. Come on, brother. You understand what I'm saying? TPL. I don't know if you're a brother or sister. I don't want to address you in the wrong way, but I understand where you're coming from. Yes, absolutely. I'd rather have somebody who's gonna come in my face and be, up front with me. At least I know where you're coming from. So I know where I got to go and what I have to do. So if I don't have no friends in the White House, I got to turn to the black, the brown, and the red house, to my peoples. So our people could learn to do for self. Because the only time that our people truly wake up is when we're being almost slaughtered, and the level of discrimination and oppression becomes so unbearable that listen, either we turn to one another and say, you know what, we better work together, or we're going to suffer more, we're going to die, and our children are going to die. So, these things is nothing new. That's why I don't vote. I've seen enough crap and lies and 500 years. Come on, come on. Where do we learn? When do we learn? We still divided amongst our own people. We still have too much anger against each other, too much negative aggression towards one another, and division, the foolish division that we have on simple things, and not looking like our forefathers used to say, our foremothers used to say, we're thinking 7 generations ahead for our children. So let's put the BS aside and let's forge a new reality, work together, so that we will survive and our children will see a better day. So these are some of the reasons why our people are going to have to suffer, because we still can't, we don't seem to get it. You're knocking your head up against the wall trying to integrate with a people who don't love you. They can't stand the sight of you. I'm not saying for people to go out and start killing them. No, I don't. I don't subscribe to that. But we must do like the Jews. We claim this is our land. What are we doing to cultivate that which we claim that is ours? Those of us who have the resources and the wherewithal um, to make change. We must do this. We must connect, network, um, help others, help ourselves first, and put our petty differences aside. The indigenous community today, I, when you think about social media and what it has the potential to accomplish for us, but because of our differences, our surface, superficial differences, we can't seem to establish. Look at Black and Indigenous American video dated 24th June. Okay, I will. I will definitely. I will do that. I will do that. I was just speaking to a brother not too long ago. Um, he's a lawyer, I believe. I can't remember his name to save my life. Getting old, my memory ain't what it used to be. But he, I reached out to speak to this brother, and I wanted to make a connection because look, since I've been disconnected from an indigenous group, I've been solo since my organization disbanded, and I reached out to the brother to make some type of connection, and when I told him who I was, and I told him where my families were from, his response was, "They'll be on a panel." Okay, okay. His response was, "Well, what am I doing in the Northeast? And I haven't acknowledged, or I haven't presented myself to them. What am I doing up in the Northeast without presenting myself to them?" And I was taken aback by his comments, because I was born in New York. I just told him that my family's because I was adopted. He didn't know to the extent of my background. And I said to him plainly, look, my family is from North and South Carolina. And I had came into that information in the 90s, in the early 90s. But being raised as a Black American, and again finding out my native past was kind of like, still um, 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 being absorbed. It took time for me over the years to absorb that information and make it whole within myself. That took time. So when the brother said that to me, I was like, in the Northeast. What am I doing up in the North? He made it seem as though I wasn't supposed to be up in the Northeastern corridor. I was like, because I was ordained a chief in 2008, which was a huge surprise for myself. That was something that I didn't expect. Didn't even know if I really wanted it at the time. So, I responded by telling him that I was born in New York, and I gave him the appropriate answers and information, and I just detected. Now, again, many of you who know me, I have another name. It's Lamik Khalifa. Many of you do not know. Some people do know that I was raised in Islam. It's molded me and it's made me the better human being that I am today. Uh, Not so quick to anger as I used to when I was younger, and it's taught me a lot. It's made me a wiser human being. All right. So, I noticed that he had basically was telling me that there had been some others who were making claims. I guess that they were indigenous, and maybe some of the other Hebrew Israelite indigenous peoples who, the way he was coming at me was like, their conversations was less than civilized, if you will. So he said to me that, he said, well, it was a pleasure, to have spoken to you, as you have proven to be someone worthy of conversation over opposed to others that I have spoken to in the past, and that he appreciated the time. And I told him thank you, and I felt the same, you know. But yeah, so that was something that again it caught me by surprise. I said to myself, these differences that we have, these superficial differences, is one of the reasons why. And I said to myself, so many of us come at our people with an attitude that, well, I know this is what happened, and it's no other way that it happened. I'm not going to come into your house and tell you about your family's history. You know, I don't believe in that. There are many different perspectives that our people have. Many different. I'm not even saying that all of them are right or all of them are wrong. That's your perspective. We're all going to have differences on cultural, historical narratives or perspectives on different things. We're always going to see differently. We are never ever going to see the same thing eye to eye. But and this is where I was a little disappointed when I spoke to the brother. I'm saying to myself, brother, don't you see the greater and bigger picture that needs to be addressed here? And with the unification of the different tribes around the country would be of benefit to not one but all of our peoples, if we could just learn to put these perspectives down, not our morals, no, our cultural traditions, however different, are rooted a lot in spirituality, whether it's our dances, our clothes, the way we wear our clothes. But we have a moral obligation to one another, and that's to show respect and integrity towards each other. The meeting of the chiefs, the clans mothers, to reconnect and create a longhouse from New York to California is something that all indigenous people should be looking to, so that we could look ahead 7 generations from now and say, yes, our children do have a future. But again, to my dismay, um, it's hard. It's hard when you think about the possibilities that are there, but could be, something that could be really, 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 really looked at, and sought after to achieve. We can achieve these things if we would just humble ourselves. Humility, humility, because of the angry spirit, has been cast aside. We are too many of us now, because of coming into the state of knowing, becoming arrogant, um, and the knowledge of our existence. You know, it's sad and troubling ideas that we would put our outer image or our titles above that which would bring us to a sense of unity, that we would survive. Um, and when people keep saying, can we just get along? Can we just get together? No, it has to be built off of a um, social and economic platform, whereas that we put our titles aside and work for the betterment of our people, working to establish uh, programs, schools, education, um, economics, businesses. These things are important for us. And if we could do this around, I believe that indigenous peoples, if we could do something like this around the country, put our petty differences aside and work for the greater good, man, we'll run. We will definitely be a force to be reckoned with. But until that humility sets in, and it's almost like the Trail of Tears. And I'm not talking about just the Cherokees. I'm talking about all of the indigenous peoples who were forced off their homeland, had to be relocated, displaced, but they had to rebuild once they got where they were forced to go. And because of the pain and the suffering, many of us have isolated as a result. And you understand that, especially when you're trying to rebuild something that has been stolen from you. You've been torn asunder. You really don't want to deal with other people. You want to stay to yourself. Well, I want to give you an example. If we as a people were suddenly, just close your eyes for a second and think that white people were suddenly removed from this continent, and that we were here again amongst ourselves. And then open your eyes. Oh shit. What would we do? What would we do as a people if that were to suddenly happen? Because we're going to be faced with something like that, possibly very soon. Possibly. How will we react? Some of us today, I don't want to be where there's no white people at. Can't do without your master. Wow. So how are we going to deal with each other? The many different nations, are we going to be like when Tecumseh said, let's unite, let's work together? And many of us turn our backs. For what? I'm going to stay with my peoples over here. I don't want to have nothing to do with y'all over there. We're not thinking of the greater good. You're just thinking of your common good, your common self, and that's it. So therefore, 500 years post-white people, another group of people come, recognize that your land, your continent, is not structured, is not dressed properly, is not fortified, is not defended. You see, when the Europeans first came here, we had our little temples, the Maya that were here, Inca and the Aztec, but they weren't united. They was spread out, strewn about the place here and there. No true unity, because we all know that there's strength in numbers. Am I right? What does it mean by the four colors? What does it mean by the four colors come together? Or I would assume that that's the black, the brown, the red, and yellow. That's my assumption. That means all of the darker peoples. But the last one, black, brown, red, yellow, and last one is white. You do the math. So 500 years pass again. We're revisited again by another people with no standing army, no defense, no structure, all because we said, I don't want to have nothing to do with those Cherokees over there, those Penobscot over there. We all Indians, or we all indigenous peoples, but because of stupidity, we didn't unite to build an empire that we call Guatemala or Turtle Island today. And that if we would have just done that, that no one post white people being removed would ever invade our shores ever again, and that we would be a people who would defend the integrity of our people and this land. So therefore, we have not learned from our mistakes. And if we cannot learn from the mistakes of those who came before, then how are we worthy to keep Turtle Island? We're not worthy to keep it. It would and forever be at the behest or the control of others, because we can't get our shit together. Excuse my language. So initially, forgive me in my expletives. So sorry. I initially wanted to speak on the stories that are being told about our people, and that so many other people who do not really represent who we are as indigenous people tell our stories, and that there are few and far of those who are telling our stories today on social media, and some with great force. I'd have. It's what is this the promised land for the tribe of Gad? I'm so glad you asked that question, sister. Listen to me. The promised land doesn't exist necessarily under our feet if we can't maintain it or procure that land or secure that land for ourselves and our family and the generations. The land, the promised land, is in the heart and here first. So once you procured your sense of identity, your connection to the creator, or should I say that first, identity, our families, our culture, our way of life, and with intelligence and proper education, then the land comes secondly, wherever that may be. I mean, look, we've been here for over 16,000 years, sister. Over 16,000 years, and we still haven't gotten our shit together. You know, what white people did was atrocious. There's no excuse for the things that they have done. There's no excuse, and there's no getting away from the judgment of what they've done. But sister, the promised land is only a promise from the great God himself if our people are in sync, are in line with that which he wants from us. You know, we are human beings and we are made from him. But if we are not living accordingly to how he created us, then what good is the land that we live on? For it shall be corrupted by the very betrayal of God's word, his spirit, and the way he wants us to live. So we would corrupt and poison the land because of the way we think, the way we do, and the way we act. Really, it's a little redundant, but you understand what I'm saying. And thus is the European who was given 10 laws to follow, the 10 commandments. That was for him. We knew better. You know, at one point, there were things that our people, you know, the natural spiritual laws like child molestation, pedophiles. You ask our people 300-400 before the European got here, what's that? What's that? You know, homosexuality, what's that? And I will say that the Greeks, hold on, before people start attacking me, that the Greeks misinterpreted the Ethiopians, just in case people say, oh, homosexuality been there for a long time. Right? The Greeks, when they went into Ethiopia, they saw brothers holding hands, but it wasn't a sexual thing. It was a brotherly thing. It wasn't anything to do with sex. The Greeks took that as, oh, it's okay to do it because of their own inhibitions, on their own insatiable lowered appetites, and they decided to adhere to those lower desires, and homosexuality became so pervasive out of Europe. And not only that, but they were having sex with children. Come on, the Catholic Church was doing it for centuries. Come on, come on. So our people were not this way. We were not this way. This was not something that was ingrained within us or innate. They just gave into their lower desires. That's why spirituality in our people, the medicine bag, the sweat lodges, the shamans, the priests, the prayers, we were closer to our creator than they were, because we knew that aspiring to the higher self nature of ourselves, not to the lower self, which is below the waist, that would be connecting closer to our God, because this is who we were made from. That's why when the European got here, certain things that he did, we were looking at him like, what manner of man is this? What kind of man is this? And when dost thou come from? That's a long story. But we have to understand that we are different. He is a man who was destroyed and made in a certain way that was a hell, and that's how he came out. And that when he was unleashed upon the world, he brought all of that hell with him. And we were subject to it because we have never seen a man like that before. But we were also to be taught a lesson because we were not perfect. We were not perfect. We were not perfect. So God said, I'm going to teach y'all a lesson. And these people, you know, some of us fell in love with them and their ways. And some of us sold out to our lower selves as well, and to some degree. But again, I have to add that some of the nastiness that he espoused, well, our people were disgusted at some of the things that we saw him do, and some that's why some of us fought to the death rather than even Geronimo, who gave up. I was watching a documentary earlier. He said, man, he told his nephew, he said, man, I should have went out, you know, fighting these people to the death. Look, in Congress, in politics, white folks really don't want the darker peoples in their social equality. Yeah, yeah, yep, that's right. Oh, we're not getting out of this easy either. Look, the great judgment is on his head, but ours too. But ours too, because we're supposed to know better. We're supposed to know better. It's at a point that we can't see the difference between right and wrong today. That which is right is wrong. That which is wrong is right. We don't recognize, that the way we're living is wrong. We feel it. We can understand it, but we turn a blind eye to it. Some of us, even out of fear, close our mouths. Don't say nothing against it. I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't support homosexuality, lesbianism, homosexuality, pedophiles. I don't support none of that. I wouldn't go out and hurt nobody, because I'm not the judge. God is. But I don't support that type of behavior. I don't support that. Um, our brother Yeshua always taught that he taught us how to be fishers of men by being able to cast his net, to cast the net that was already on them, pull that net off and cast his net and pull them in. That's a metaphor. That's a spiritual metaphor, to be able to cut through the clouds of confusion and dysfunction that would cause the human being to error, to deviate from God's natural course and how we're supposed to live. How can two men having uh, anal intercourse with each other, as that deemed as something that's good? Huh? Come on, come on. We know that it takes a man and a woman to reproduce and recreate, not two men. That's why COVID is here. More plagues to come. Yeah, we partake in it and won't turn away from iniquity and evilness. Yeah, just like the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. God sent his angels. Hey, uncle, got my uncle here. Was that no? Wait a minute, that's not my uncle. No, no, I'm sorry. That's brother Anthony Thompson. How you doing, brother? Um, that our people again have been so deceived that we can't rationalize or discern between that which is good and that which is bad anymore. We just seem we're so stuck on confusion that whenever the white man says yes, this is good, and we know damn well it's not, we'll say okay, and we'll agree and smile with it. Mm-mm. No, if some of our ancestors were here today, go 300-400 years, they would look at us and say, what is wrong with you? Our people lie so much today. We deceive each other so much today and destroy each other so much today, that it's commonplace. It's commonplace. There was an old Indian um, proverb that said, Indian said, I'd rather cut off my left arm than to tell a lie. We've lost that. We're not like that anymore. As indigenous peoples, I say live, I'm out on break at my job. Okay, brother. Okay. All right. Yes, I am. I will. So meaning that we have gone not backwards, but we've gone backwards in terms of our thinking. We haven't moved forward morally and spiritually, which is really who our people are. We were a highly connected people to the God. We were highly connected because we knew that damn well in our communities, if you committed a crime, you was dealt with swiftly. We didn't have prisons in our communities. Why not? We didn't have crime like that. Because if you did something that was evil or wicked, depending on what it was, you either warned, excommunicated, or you were killed. Because we didn't play that. We didn't play that. But this society that we live in, a pedophile go to jail for a year, get out, and uh, a murderer do 10 or 15 years, depending on who he kills, and get out of prison. And then these politicians, they commit high crimes, like what's her name, Cohen and Flynn and them the other day. Didn't they just get out of jail? Stone. They commit all these crimes. Don't even do all of their time for whatever it is that they've done, and they're out of prison just that quick. But not for me and you. So we living in an unjust, immoral, decadent, degenerate society. It was created this way from its inception. How long can it last? America was created to be destroyed. Ooh. You hear what I said? America was created to be destroyed. Now, how many of you know about Wavoka, the Paiute Indian brother who visited the I think it was Sitting Bull and the Lakota in the 1880s. Wavoka. He was a shaman, and he came and he told the people after all of this suffering that one day the white man would be no more. He would be taken off, and that the people should learn to do the circle, the dance in the circle, or the circle dance. I can't remember the name, but he told the people to do the dance and to bring back the spirits of the ancestors. But the prophecy was that one day that they would be removed. Look, they're already being removed, and this is why they're fearful. The numbers. White men are not producing. Their sperm bank is bankrupt. They're not having children as much as who? Black, brown, red, and yellow. So he's being outnumbered, and he knows this, and he's definitely afraid. So what does he have to do to keep our people at odds, create more division, have us fighting against each other, and keep us distracted and not looking and seeing what it is? And you know, the sad thing about it is that why are they so fearful? Again, because they fear, and this is ultimately what's going on. They fear that what they've done to us, we will ultimately do to them. Now, that's a justifiable fear. I get it. You know, that's just like you stole something from someone's house and it's like right around the corner, and you looking to see if that person is coming around the corner to come, you know, if somebody might have seen you, or they say, yeah, I saw such and such. He stole your TV. He's right around the corner in his house with your TV. So you going over there to go check him on that. Okay, so he knows one day that he would be judged, or revenge would be waiting for him. So that's why in the nation, we say separation or death. You know, I'm not a part of the Nation of Islam. I want nobody to take that out of context. But I am a firm believer in that philosophy Why? Because the hellish nightmare of a civil slash race war in this country will kill millions of people. Millions. So, the alternative, God offered Pharaoh a way out. He said, let my people go. He has to give up land for that. And you know damn well many of us, you know, as dark as we are, as brown as we are, you know, some of us have been labeled or mislabeled as African American. You know damn well we ain't going to no Africa. Look, this ain't that. This is my country. I'm staying right here. So they talking about, you know, well, we leave it. No, hell no, no. You gotta go. You gotta go. Take you some of your asses back to Europe, or we make some type of an agreement, whereas that some of our people are given 5 or 10 states. This is what's coming. I want you guys to prepare your minds for this. And vice versa, some African Americans, because if African Americans get land, you know damn well he's got to give up as well. So it ain't gonna be just a one-part deal, cut and dry, and that's it. No, man, no. Because what's going to follow is African Americans say reparations, land. Oh boy, here come all of the indigenous people. And this is where it's important for our people to put our petty differences aside, and with one voice say, damn it, you know this country don't belong to you either. And we are demanding that we get ours as well. And see, white folks, he's look. You're dealing with a thief and a murderer. I'm calling it what it is. He's still stealing and murdering. He's over in the Middle East. He has been stealing and murdering. And what's the crazy boy? Come out of the camera. The crazy thing about that is he's got, this is what's wild. Think about this for a minute now. He's got black, Hispanic, Native American, Asian, and his own people fighting, killing in other countries, calling it fighting for our freedoms. Wow. When most of us know damn well that's bullshit. Excuse my language. Most of us know that's BS. We know damn well that they're over in the Middle East and other parts of the world for resources. And some of us bought that BS and have been running with that and have been almost hypnotized into believing that you're doing your patriotic duty by going in someone else's country to kill them. You ain't in Europe. You in some of the other darker people's countries committing crimes. Hold on, I know some of us got family members who are military. I know because they're saturated all over mines. But you know, look, our people have, this is the crazy part, is that we have been removed from our own suffering at the hands of a troop. Okay, I'm talking about in the 1800s with the American government and its military against Crazy Horse, guy out there, Geronimo, Sitting Bull. Didn't they put the military against our people to do what? Steal resources and land, and to put us on reservations. Look what the hell they've done in the Middle East. Iraq in disarray. They trying to get Iran. Iran ain't having it. But they got Libya. They killed Muammar Gaddafi. Why? Because he had millions of dollars in gold, plus he was helping the Africans when they were, he was building a waterway so they could irrigate their crops, so they can build an economy. So they murdered Muammar Gaddafi, and they did it by the way of Hillary Clinton. Yeah. So what have our people learned? You know, I know most of us go into the military for economic. Some of us don't have no other choice. I understand. I'm not, you know, criticizing those who um, have fallen to the wayside and had no other choice, you know, for economic gain. I understand that, and many in my family as well have done that. But once you come to an understanding, once you've reached that point of that, what am I doing? You know, I'm going to other countries to hurt darker people. Some of them look like me. And for what? I know my niece. My she was in Iraq, and she's alive, but I'll be damned. I tell my kids every day, no way you going in this man's military. For what? I make sure I prepare a way for them in their future that they won't have to. But the way things are going, when where we're headed, ain't gonna be much left. But I still ingrain with them a sense of pride and love and respect for themselves first, for their culture, for their heritage and their people first, before anything else. This is important that we learn to make that adjustment and teaching ourselves better, because history must serve as a lesson for us, that we will not stumble over the same stumbling blocks that have been put before our people, that our children or our children's children would make the same mistakes. This is why we go through these things. People ask, well, why are we suffering so much? Well, what kind of God would do this? Because you must learn from your mistakes. And if you do not learn from your mistakes, your children will keep making the same mistakes, and even worse down the line. So it's important that we take note even of our own lives, and that we pass these down to the next generation. This is what, and I learned this from the Minister Farrakhan. He said, don't do vain things in terms of talking about your life. Talk about the things that you did that you regret, and give that to your children. And I said, wow, that's a powerful statement. Even if you just sit and tell them the things that you did in your life is good. But leaving a book behind that entails the things that we did in our lives, so that they won't, because we always, those of us who have children, say, you just got here the other day. I've been here, for X and X amount of years, and I know what you're gonna do before you do it. Because what? We've done it already. So therefore, we have the wisdom, the knowledge and the wisdom to make sure that our own children do not make these same mistakes. We must learn to teach our children better in interacting with those who look like them, and teach them to be humble and to be respectful and courteous amongst their peers in the streets, in the schools, or wherever they may be. We wonder why our children are killing themselves out in the streets, because they have an idea and a belief that they're worth nothing. How do you teach them to love themselves when they have nothing to hold on to? So we must change the narrative. We can't let other people tell our story. And we can't become that which they have trained us like dogs to be. We must come out of her. And that's a metaphor meaning the immoral attitudes of white America we must come out of, if we are going to live. We know damn well white America has brought all of her nastiness from Europe, and she has ingrained and indoctrinated and programmed our people. That's why we are the way we are today, because we have been amongst them for 400 plus years. So therefore, we think that because the way we are today, that all human beings are this way. And then I hear white folks and even some of our brothers say that, well, man has always been this way. That's a lie. That's a lie. There was one man that came into the world, and one man that came with him. Sin came with him as he came into the world. I'm not talking about perfection here. I'm talking about a perversion, a deviation. Yes, it takes a village, but we have to start at home and teach them when they go out into the streets. It's like innocence. You know, most people, you see some children, they're very, withdrawn, and they're humble, and they really don't want to talk to anybody, but they go to school, they want to learn. And then here come some of the other kids. I call them bullies. What's wrong with you? Why you look like that? Why you act like that? Who taught that child to be that way? And the other child is just there, humble, wants to learn. Different personalities. That's why it's important to talk to your children. Make sure that they don't deviate to becoming bullies, to acknowledge that humility and being humble and innocence is nothing wrong with innocence. And then we start to say, oh, once they lose that innocence, that's it. So what the hell has happened to us? Have we not lost our innocence, my people? And if we lost it, how did we lose it? Was it a natural occurrence? I don't think so. We were forced against our will, put into boarding schools, public schools. The nuns, the Catholic nuns, were raping and beating and killing our people in the school system. Come on, were they not? They taught us that our long hair was evil and wicked. They taught us that our names were against God. That we had to have their Christian names. That's why so many of us are running around here with names like Red Deer Jones. So we're mixed up. We got partial Indian names and partial English names. Some of us got French names. But it's not just the name that have perverted or made us become deviant. It's not just the names. It's the attitudes. It's the system. It's the social disorder that we have been raised around forcibly. We have been brought into this. Wants his people to come away from this evil world. He said, separate yourself, live in this world. True. But then how was our brother Yeshua, or who people call Jesus 2,000 years ago? He was so wise and he was raised in that situation. So when we say separate, first we have to separate mentally and spiritually and culturally first. Then again comes the land, because there are those who are so immersed in this way of this world and this way of thinking that they don't want to change. They think it's okay. So what do you do with people like that? How do you come out of a people that they say, well, what's wrong with me? Ain't nothing wrong with me. I like the way things are. There's a story about Sodom and Gomorrah, and that when Lot was told by the angels to leave, He turned to his wife and he went to grab her hand and tell her to come. She took and she pulled her hand. She said, "No, I want to stay here. I like it here." So you can't force people like that to change. If they are immersed in that way of thinking and living, they actually like it that way. And you can't change those people. Only best thing to do is to separate yourself from them. And ultimately, a world and that type of environment or nature will ultimately destroy itself in time. It will ultimately implode. And did we not see that in Rome with the Romans? And Nero, what was his name? Nero. He was busy having sex parties and dancing and music while the country was imploding from within. So they like that decadent and immoral and wicked lifestyle. Just like America loves war. America loves war. Uh, when it comes to war, as American as apple pie, violence. She loves it. She's bathed in it. And there's anybody who wants to argue with me on that point, please, please, please. Since day one, America's been at war. She's barely had 10 years hiatus without war. This is a war-mongering country. And I'm not afraid to say it. Being indigenous, I'm a casualty of the war against the darker peoples in particular, are from a people who are bestial and seem to love conflict and violence. So, on that note, I ended up speaking a little longer than I anticipated, but it was a pleasure, as always. I was in the spirit this evening, and I said, let me impart um, some words to my brothers and sisters. I'm so glad that many of you have managed to tune in, and this won't be the last. Minister Farrakhan, I'm going to make a note of this. He's giving a very important lecture speech, very important. April 4th, um, Eastern time is at 11 a.m. You can go if you're interested. The NOI.org. Just hear the man. Just hear, because I'm certain that he's got something very valuable, because everything that I have become today is because of him. So I would impart that if you can, please set some time up. If you're on the Eastern Seaboard, it's at 11 o'clock in the morning on July 4th. I believe that's a Saturday. So if you can, take the time out. I implore you. I implore you. All right. So on that note, I'm going to say Donada. We never say goodbye. Always until we meet again. Ahoni. Peace and blessings. Yes. Yes, sister. Please do. Please do. Anigido. Peace and blessings. I love you all. Ito.